beyond the thunder and lightning, past the clouds, over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star. The earth, walking with blood-soaked feet. She challenged the whip, the gun, the knife. She challenged the fire, pulled from the bodies of slaves, made into laws, prisons, and courts. Screaming white-hot flames and agony, she challenged millions of headhunters, dragging and ripping apart impossible tender moments of time, shipping vessels of history, ancient history, destroying the fabric, the godlike claw of destiny of a people with a gun, a knife, a cannon, building the hideous wall of blood called slavery.
Greetings and welcome back as always. Thank you all so much for joining me today. It's being reported now that Republicans are beginning to tighten the screws on Hegseth's Pentagon. Admiral Frank M. Bradley is set to meet with the lawmakers today to discuss the boat strike he oversaw that killed 11 people, including including two who died, including two who died in a follow-up attack. Admiral Bradley has met behind closed doors. Why behind closed doors? There are not any enemy combatants involved here. There's no signal intelligence to be compromised here. Open the hearings to the public. Full disclosure, full open kimono. What are they trying to hide? Why won't they? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. With each show, my guests and I provide insight and analysis into a current events and the broader historical context in which most of these events take place. Let's quickly take a look at a couple of today's headlines. The New York Times reports that they're suing the Pentagon over press restrictions. Defense Secretary Hegseth's new requirement that journalists pledge not to solicit any unauthorized information violates the First and Fifth Amendments, the newspaper is alleging, calling it, quote, an attempt to exert control over reporting the government dislikes, end quote. Folks, the First Amendment is very, very clear. Quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free speech thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The First Amendment is very clear. The government cannot abridge the right to speak and cannot abridge the right of the press. And what Hegseth is attempting to do is abridge the rights of the press. That patently, that on its face is direct violation of the First Amendment. The New York Times sued the Defense Department over its press policy prohibiting journalists from soliciting any information not explicitly authorized for release by the government. In a complaint filed this morning in federal district court, the Times alleged the press rules implemented by Hegseth violates the First Amendment and the Fifth Amendment's guarantee of a free press and the Fifth Amendment due process rights. Like the 14th Amendment, the Fifth Amendment includes a due process clause stating that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The Fifth Amendment's due process clause applies to the federal government, while the 14th Amendment's due process clause applies to state governments. That's why the New York Times has brought the Fifth Amendment into this conversation as well. Quote, the policy is an attempt to exert control over reporting the government doesn't like, Charlie Stratlander, a spokesperson for the Times, has said in a statement. The Times intends to vigorously defend against the violation of these rights, just as we've done long throughout administrations opposed to scrutiny and accountability. And so the reason that I wanted to just briefly hit on this right after talking about Pete Hegseth and the hearings in Congress is talking about the opposition to scrutiny and accountability. Deciding to hold these hearings with Admiral Bradley in secret does what? It causes problems with our ability as American citizens to scrutinize the actions of a member of the military, and it also makes it that much more difficult for the American citizens to hold those in positions of responsibility accountable for what they say and accountable for what they do. The next story, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is taunting New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, saying, and this is Netanyahu, he'll come to New York after Mayor-elect vowed to arrest him. Netanyahu touted Mamdani this week, saying he would return to New York, defying the socialist mayor-elect's pledge to have him arrested on charges of war crimes. Quote, I'll come to New York, end quote, Netanyahu told the Dealbrook Summit at Lincoln Center on Wednesday via video from Israel. Yes, of course I will. Mamdani has vowed vowed during the election campaign to impose an international criminal arrest warrant for the Israeli prime minister in connection with the war in Gaza. Netanyahu also told the forum that he wouldn't meet with Mamdani unless he accepted Israel's right to exist. Quote, if Mamdani changes his mind and says we have the right to exist, that'll be a good opening for a conversation. Netanyahu said this in response to a question about whether he would ask to speak with the mayor-elect. So this is, right now, very simply, just a war of words. Mamdani has been very clear, saying that he would exercise, and he vowed to impose an international criminal court arrest warrant for Netanyahu. Now, here's one of the issues, or one of the questions. When would Netanyahu try to or plan to come to New York? As I understand it, if he comes to this, if he's granted a visa to attend meetings relevant to the United Nations, then Netanyahu is allowed to come to the country, to come to the city, and I want to say it's maybe a 4-block radius that he would be allowed to move freely, a 4-block radius of the United Nations. I think it's 4 blocks. It might be 2. But if he were to venture beyond that agreed to space, then there could be a problem. So then, if Netanyahu then decides to come to New York outside of the context of United Nations meetings, then Mamdani will be forced to do one of two things: to either follow up on his election campaign promise to impose an international criminal court arrest warrant, or he'll have to back down. So right now, we're dealing simply with a war of words. And if you're going to come, Netanyahu, bring it, and we'll see what happens. The other question then becomes, if he comes outside of the preview, or what's the word I'm looking for? Under the protection of the United Nations, how would Mamdani impose the warrant? Is he going to have NYPD roll up on Netanyahu and slap cuffs on him? How does the NYPD get through Netanyahu's security? Will the chief of police, who I believe is on the side of Zionist interests, would she actually follow Mamdani's dictate to arrest Netanyahu? I hope the cameras are rolling when that confrontation ensues, because this one I gotta see. Interesting piece in Z Network. Z Network has a piece: Democrats in Congress are out of touch with constituents on Israeli genocide. Last month, some House members publicly acknowledged that Israel has been committing genocide in Gaza. It's a judgment that Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch unequivocally proclaimed a year ago. Israeli human rights organizations have reached the same conclusion, but such clarity is sparse in Congress. And this is a piece from Z Network. And they say, no wonder genocide denial is needed for continuing to appropriate billions of dollars in weapons to Israel, as most legislators have kept doing. Congress members would find it very difficult to admit that Israeli forces are committing genocide while voting to send them more weaponry. 3 weeks ago, Representative Rashida Tlaib, Democrat from Michigan, introduced a resolution titled Recognizing the Genocide of the Palestinian People in Gaza. 21 House colleagues, all of them Democrats, signed on as co-sponsors. They account for 10% of the Democrats in Congress. In sharp contrast, a national Quinnipiac poll found 77% of Democrats, quote, think Israel is committing genocide, end quote. That means there's a 67% gap between what the elected Democrats are willing to say and what the people who elected them believe. The huge gap has big implications for the party's primaries in the midterm elections next year. And then you've got the 2028 presidential nomination on the horizon as well. And I think it's also important to keep in mind with this, one of the major reasons Vice President Kamala Harris failed in her bid to win election as president in 2024 was because she and the party were on the wrong side of the genocide issue. And I use that terminology, wrong side of the genocide issue, because are there really two sides to this question? Is there really, other than being opposed to genocide, is there another side to the question? How can you not be opposed to genocide? That to me is a very, very, very simple question. How can you be opposed to genocide? If you recognize the reality of the Holocaust in Germany and other countries like Poland and whatnot during World War II, if you do believe that Hitler's Third Reich exterminated Jews, exterminated gypsies, exterminated other people of color in the Holocaust, if you believe that did happen, and newsflash, it did, then how can you not first admit that the Zionist state of Israel has been and continues to be committing genocide against the Palestinians, and that in doing so, those are war crimes and crimes against humanity? Help me, please, somebody help me square that circle, because there's no other position. If you have a conscience, if you have any basis of a moral compass in your being, there's no other position. Then Israel is engaged in genocide, and genocide is a crime against humanity. I'll take any challenger, that anybody that thinks that they can bring something to this conversation. I'll be more than happy to arrange a time for you to come on the show so that we could have this conversation, because you might as well at the same time then try to argue the position that water is not wet, that fish do not swim, that the earth does not revolve around the sun. We can pick a number of other, that 1 + 1, you can try to explain to me how 1 + 1 does not equal 2, and how, at least in North America, the sun doesn't rise in the east and set in the west. I've given you a number of options to pursue. Feel free to try to take a position on any of those that you so choose. There's also an interesting developing story. For the second day in a row, President Donald Trump has launched into this hate-filled, racist rant against the country of Somalia and Somali immigrants living in the United States, saying they've destroyed Minnesota and our country. Here's a bit of audio from the president relevant to this point. Let's go ahead and roll that video.
Which is barely a country. You know, they have no anything. They just run around killing each other. There's no structure. And when I see somebody like Ilhan Omar, who I don't know at all, but I always watch her for years. I've watched her complain about our Constitution, how she's being treated badly. Our Constitution, the United States of America, is a bad place. Hates everybody, hates Jewish people, hates everybody. And I think she's an incompetent person. She's a real terrible person. But when I watch what is happening in Minnesota, the land of 1,000 lakes, or however many lakes they have, they got a lot of lakes, but this beautiful place, and I see these people ripping it off, and now I'm understanding, and you're going to look into that, Scott, I hear they ripped off Somalians, ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country is no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I can say that about other countries, too. I can say it about other countries, too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain, and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it.
That is such a despicable, racist rant. Somalis are garbage. Ilhan Omar is garbage? See, that's all a part of the same dehumanizing mentality that was used to dehumanize the Native Americans. It's the same racist, white supremacist diatribe that was used to dehumanize Africans as they were enslaved, stolen, brought to this country. It's the same racist mentality that was used to justify and rationalize apartheid in South Africa. And it's the same racist diatribe, mindset, just utter sickness that is being used to dehumanize Palestinians. It's a continuation of the same theme. It's the same racist mindset that allows Donald Trump to think that he can just send missiles into Venezuela and or send troops, boots on the ground into Venezuela. It's all part and parcel of the same theme. Here's another clip from Donald Trump. This is just despicable. Here's Donald Trump again.
Frey is saying that he's actually proud to have the largest Somali community in the country, and his police chief.
Well, then he's a fool.
Well, his police chief is also
I
saying
wouldn't be proud to have the largest Somalian. Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. Look, these Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan Omar. She shouldn't be allowed to be a congresswoman, and I'm sure people are looking at that. And she should be thrown the hell out of our country. And most of those people, they have destroyed Minnesota, okay? That beautiful land, that beautiful state. It's a hellhole right now. And the Somalians should be out of here. They've destroyed our country. And all they do is complain, complain, complain. You have her. She's always talking about the Constitution provides me with... Go back to your own country and figure out your Constitution. All she does is complain about this country, and without this country, she would not be in very good shape. She probably wouldn't be alive right now. So Somalia is considered by many to be the worst country on earth. I don't know. I haven't been there. I won't be there anytime soon, I hope. But what the Somalian people have done to Minnesota is not even believable. It's not even believable.
Did you see, if we get a chance and we can re-rack that, I just want to see the first frame. Just, if you could, reopen that, and then, there you go. Look at Ted Cruz. I don't know who those other clowns are standing behind him. Look at Ted Cruz with that smile on his disgusting face. Ted Cruz is standing behind the guy that said his dad participated in the assassination of Kennedy and that his wife is ugly. I don't know if we can pull up a picture of Ted Cruz's wife. I can't remember what she looks like. But Ted Cruz, I got to, well, see, I'm trying to maintain a level of professionalism and decorum. I don't want to devolve into the types of commentary and diatribe that some of my colleagues do, because it's less than professional. So it's taking every fiber in my being to remain such. And Pastor Williams, I'm praying that I do. Look at that. Look at that. Look at what we have devolved to. Look at what we have devolved to. Stromboli, the people of hope. Thank you for that $10 super sticker. Until Americans recognize publicly, the history of this country and its laws and institutions being built on racism towards Black people, and this madness will only continue to escalate and thrive. You are absolutely right. Which is Stromboli, the people of hope, 54.95. Thank you, and you're absolutely right. That what the point that you just made, that until they recognize publicly the history of the country, that's one of the major reasons why the administration wants to attack and is attacking DEI, because they don't want to have to recognize and then be forced to rectify the racist nature of the country. When you read the 3/5 compromise, when you read the fugitive slave provision, when you read the fact that the importation of enslaved Africans was allowed for 20 years after the Constitution was ratified, those things are written into the same document, written into the Constitution of the country. Folks, the hypocrisy of all of this, it's written into, if you start with the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. And then you go from the Declaration of Independence to the preamble of to the text of the Constitution. Again, that has the 3/5 compromise, that has the fugitive slave provision, that ensures the right and guarantees the right of the importation of enslaved Africans for 20 years after the country, after the Constitution was ratified. The hypocrisy in the country is nauseating, and the failure of this government to, as Stromboli, the people of hope, has said, recognizes publicly the history of the country. You can't reconcile the horrific reality. And until you do that, you cannot move forward and empower the interests that are necessary in order to set the record straight and make things right going forward. You cannot do that. So not only do you give us a $10 super sticker, now you want to give us another $5. Stromboli of the people, thank you very much. And until this country recognizes verbally the evils of Zionism as well, this madness will continue to escalate and thrive. You are absolutely right. Again, see, folks, there's no other side to this Zionism issue. It is very simply racist, white supremacist, settler colonialism. That's so when Netanyahu says, I'm not going to sit down with Mamdani until he acknowledges Israel's right to exist. No, BB, no, not under the current structure, not as a settler colonial state, not as a Jewish state. No, that's racist. Pure and simple. Just as we had to do away with apartheid in South Africa, you've got to do away with apartheid in Israel. And that's not anti-Semitic. Thank you. And I'm going to call for that in just a second. Thank you. That's not anti-Semitic. No, that has nothing to do with Semitism. No. Those two things are not the same. They're not. Because Semites are a language group, not an ethnicity. And the sooner we stop promoting that BS that they are the same, the sooner we stop promoting and perpetuating that lie, or as they'd say on the corner, perpetrating that fraud, the better off we're all going to be. Because as soon as you admit the right of the Zionist settler colony of Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state, you have now enshrined in law the right to oppress the Palestinians. Why? Because most of them aren't Jewish. Now, if you want to have a conversation with me about the right of Israel to exist as a democratic state, now we can talk. If you want to have a conversation, BB, about the right for one person, one vote in the state of Israel, now we can rap. Now we can rap. You see, folks, these are some of the very simple realities and intricacies in this conversation that Netanyahu and Hakeem Jeffries and Richie Torres and Kamala Harris and Gregory Meeks, these are the intricacies and realities that they don't want to talk about. Why? Because their benefactors, such as AIPAC, have bought them off and paid them not to speak to. That's not anti-Semitic. That's pro-democracy. That's pro-equality. It's anti-genocide. It's anti-apartheid. Very simple. And again, I challenge anybody. You want to bring a differing position, a valid differing position to the floor? Please do. I take all comers. I ain't scared. I take all comers. But don't come up in here with no, shiggity, because you'll wind up eating it. And I hope you like how it tastes. Oh, so let's put up this picture, please, of the happy couple. So there you got Ted Cruz, right? Look at him smiling behind old comb over here. See the comb over here? Does my cursor show up on the screen? Anyway, so now let's see this. Roll this beautiful bean footage. That's Ted Cruz and Mrs. Ted Cruz. That's not an ugly woman. Would she be the first one I asked to dance at the club? Probably not. But we might make our way onto the dance floor at some point in the evening. Anyway, so Donald Trump says Ted Cruz's wife is ugly. I don't think so. Now, she married that fool. So now you might want to question her sanity. But I can't say the woman's ugly. And here's the point: whether she, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I understand that. But my bigger point is, Ted Cruz, you stand behind this man smiling as this man insulted your wife. What man allows another man to insult his wife? What kind of man are you? It takes me back to the question of the ages. I mean, we can talk about Cicero and we can talk about Plato and Aristotle and some of the other philosophers, but that takes us to a very fundamental philosophical question. Are you a man or a muppet? A muppet or a man? That's a question of the ages. So anyway, you call Somalians garbage. You call their country hell, but you fail to acknowledge the complicity of America in the conflicts that have devastated one of the centers of intellect in the world. If you know anything about that region, which of course he obviously doesn't, you would understand that that region of the world is one of the cradles of culture. It is one of the cradles of religion. I believe, I could be off on this by a couple of miles, but I don't think I'm off by much. The Prophet Muhammad sought refuge in that region. I mean, we're talking long way back when you start talking about the Prophet, may peace be upon him. You're going back a day or two. No, Donnie. No. And more people should be outraged. Not at his ignorance, but at his expression of his ignorance. When people wonder the level of your stupidity, it's better to keep your mouth shut than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. At the Kashiba, thank you, Dr. Leon, for your professionalism and refrain from vulgarity and profanity to get your points across. And I must say, the Kashiba, I kept you in mind, and I'm not blowing smoke here. I'm honestly keeping you in mind as I engage in this exchange, because you got me once, and I swore I would never insult you again. So thank you for that recognition. Thank you for that contribution. Because not only am I channeling Pastor Williams, I've been keeping you in mind, not wanting to insult you as a loyal listener. Somalia ain't a nice place to visit because it was destroyed by the West. Bingo. Bush Sr. bombed it, claiming terrorism, even though it was all about oil. You're right about this. And not only that, but the so-called terrorism that they keep referencing, a major component of that terrorism is backed and financed by the West. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right on that point. So with that, the topic that I started with today, and it's okay. Democrat Shiri Thandar, I think I pronounced that correctly, files articles of impeachment against Hegseth for murder. Defense Secretary Hegseth is now facing an impeachment push from a Democratic member of the House of Representatives who's accusing him of committing murder. Axios's Andrew Solender reported yesterday that Representative Shri Thandar from Michigan will be officially unveiling articles of impeachment against the embattled Pentagon chief during an event that was held at Union Station this morning. So I don't know if Thandar actually introduced the legislation, but that's, I said to my students, today is Thursday. I said to them on Monday. I said, pay very close attention to this story, because if the news cycle turns and the story comes and goes, then Hegseth may very well have dodged the proverbial bullet and will be allowed to, just go along his merry way and engage in extrajudicial murder. I said, but if you turn on your TV to CNN, or what is it now? MS Now is what they call it. And they're talking about the story in the 6 o'clock hour. They're talking about the story in the 7 o'clock hour and the 10 o'clock hour. Said then Hegseth might have some problems. And yes, Ramplesense, aren't all the wars financed by the West? Yes, they are. Well, you know what? Let's be very professional and clear, because as soon as you use the word all, then you set yourself up to be proven wrong, because it only takes one example to dismiss that all statement. So we'll just say most of them. That's Shri Thandar from Michigan. And so my point is that that obviously from Monday, that this story has not only has gotten legs, but is growing legs. So now it's gone from Hegseth trying to pass the buck to Congressman Thandar, threatening to introduce charges of impeachment. So now we go to Pentagon Pete's blame game backfires. Hegseth's scramble to shield himself from blame for a blatantly illegal strike on a boat in the Caribbean hasn't exactly been subtle, least of all to his own subordinates. He's tried to wash his hands of a second deadly strike on an alleged boat following the bombshell from the Washington Post reporting earlier in the week. And here's something that is very important to pay attention to in how all of this gets discussed. Because during the press conference, which I think was yesterday, and we played some, maybe it was Tuesday, and we played some clips from that. The focus of the conversation was, well, did you know there were survivors in the water? Where were you when the video was shown? Who gave the order? Folks, the focus of the conversation first and foremost should be, there never should have been a strike called in the first place. Why? Because we are not at war with Venezuela. Congress has not declared such. Those boats, whether they were carrying drugs or bananas, was posing no military threat to the United States. So you shot a missile and struck a boat with people in it that were posing no military threat to the country. That is a war crime. That is illegal. And Pete, whether or not they were drug couriers or not, once the missile struck the boat and the boat became inoperable, the survivors are no longer considered combatants. They're off the grid. They're off. Let me see if I can quickly find the language, because there is specific language dealing with this issue. And unfortunately, let me see really quickly here if I can find for you, quickly. I probably can't, but there is very clear, and I apologize for not being better prepared on this point. But there's got it. Here we go. Bingo. International humanitarian law, which I teach, by the way. International humanitarian law stipulates that anyone deemed hors de combat, which is French for out of the fight, is to be spared from further attacks. International human rights law also prohibits, quote, no quarter, end quote, orders in which survivors of an attack are declared to be non-combatants. Former Judge Advocate General Officer Dan Maurer told CNN, if the Post reporting is true, then Hegseth and everyone involved in the chain of command for the September 2nd mission committed murder. That's not my opinion. That's from former Judge Advocate General Corps officer Dan Maurer. If the Post reporting is true, Hegseth and everyone involved in the chain of command committed murder. International humanitarian law stipulates anyone deemed hors de combat, out of the fight, once they struck the boat and the boat became inoperative, they are out of the fight. And there's another element of human rights law that was not mentioned in this article. The United States vessel was required to save those individuals in the water. There's no way that that Admiral Bradley can defend, explain, define, excuse firing a second missile. If he was on a ship in that space, he is obligated by international human rights law to pull those people out of the water and bring them to shore. That's not my opinion, folks. I don't want any of y'all over here talking about, here you go, taking Russian talking points and all that other kind of BS. No, that's international human rights law. I teach it Tuesdays and Thursdays. No, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sorry, this semester. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. No. The question is, how willing is the media? How far is the media willing to go on this? We've got some. Let's listen to Pete on this. Go ahead and roll that beautiful bean footage.
As you can imagine, at the Department of War, we got a lot of things to do. So I didn't stick around for the hour and 2 hours, whatever, where all the sensitive site exploitation digitally occurs. So I moved on to my next meeting. A couple of hours later, I learned that commander had made which he had the complete authority to do. And by the way, Admiral Bradley made the correct decision to ultimately sink the boat and eliminate the threat. He sunk the boat, and eliminated the threat. And it was the right call. We have his back, and the American people are safer.
So you didn't see any survivors, to be clear, after that first strike?
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. President Trump.
That man that was just speaking, I'm going to connect some dots here, since that's the that's what we do. That's the title of the show. I'm going to connect some dots here. Quote, on behalf of all the women, and I know it's many, you have abused in some way, I say, get some help and take an honest look at yourself. I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. You are that man and have been for years. And as your mother, it pains me and embarrasses me to say that, but it's the sad, sad truth. End quote. says Penelope Hegseth about her son. Now, she has tried to retract. I hate the term walk it back. Where in the hell did that come from? The word is retract or rescind. She has tried to retract that, but Penelope, baby girl, you can't. You can't. You're his mother. And any mother that would think that about her son, let alone write that about her son and send it to her son, that one sticks. That one stands. That one matters. That one is worth further analysis and discussion. So the guy that you just saw trying to defend murder is the same guy who mama said she has no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. What you saw on that video was nothing but ego. It was nothing but bravado. It was nothing but the sickness that besets the mind when you're given the level of power that he's been given, when you rise to your level of incompetence in which he has. I think that's called the Peter Principle. When your mama says that priest of Hiroshima was his mama a jackal, I don't know. I don't want to insult his mother. I don't know if his mom's a jackal or not. And if so, priest of Hiroshima, why do you want to insult jackals? What has a jackal ever done to you? Did a jackal steal your lunch on the way to school one day at the bus stop? Why do you why insult a jackal? So long as you stay in your space and they stay in theirs, you know, the Serengeti is cool. Ramplesense, oh man, after mocking Biden for a long time, calling him Sleepy Joe, Trump is being exactly like him. Did you see him sleeping while Hegseth was talking? Yes. Not only did I see him sleeping, Ramplesense, I think I heard him snore. That could have just been gain on the too much gain on the volume, or or some, you know. But his own mother. And so here's another question. Because that statement from his mom came out before or during his confirmation hearing. How does a guy like that get through Senate confirmation? I mean, I understand the sentiment. You know, you want to give deference to the president on his nominees, and you want to give the president the people that he's nominating. I understand that. But there's a reason when the framers were developing the Constitution that they came up with the concept of advice and consent. Advise and consent. There is a reason that they came up with the concept of checks and balances. Balances. Checks and balances. There's a reason that they came up with the concept of checks and balances. There's a reason they came up with the concept of separation of powers. Three co-equal branches of government. Three co-equal branches of government. There's a reason that they came up with separation of powers. They did not want a king. They did not want a monarch. They did not want a strong man. They had just come from a monarch. They fought a war against the monarchy. And so they spent a lot of time structuring a government to prevent the very thing that members of Congress now have abdicated their responsibility and allowed to develop, along with the Supreme Court. How do you come up with this ridiculous notion? If you have any semblance of understanding of history, of American history, if you have spent any time even looking at the Constitution, if you can just spell the word Constitution, how do you come up with the idea, and let alone try to defend, the unitary executive theory? That somehow the president, the executive branch, is more powerful than the other two. I mean, look, I remember sitting in con law and listening to the debate, but that was a philosophical discussion. That was a Socratic, let's explore this. And in the exploration and in the exposition of the ideas, it wasn't really at the end of the day to justify, validate, or verify the unitary executive idea. It was to really demonstrate that it was wrong. We're going to spend a couple of days on this idea. We're going to debate this idea. I'm talking about when I was in class. We're going to debate this idea. But at the end of the day, it's wrong. And here's why. So, you can go to Orwell's 1984. No, I'm sorry. You can go to Orwell's Animal Farm, where the great line from Animal Farm, the pigs declare or say, or the pigs' rationale in running the farm in the way that they did. All animals on the farm are equal. Just some are more equal than others. But when you read the Constitution, no. Somebody just wrote here, CAM 35 millimeter. Separation of powers and voting are opiates for the sheep. No, they're not. They may have been allowed to become that. But when you read the documents, no. And when you read, for example, I don't know, and I say this, Cam 35 millimeter, I say this not to attack you, demean you, but because we're only introduced to each other through this exchange. I don't know if you've read Federalist number 10, if you've read any of the Federalist papers. So I don't know that. But I've spent some time doing that. And so that's why I can say that I believe has given me some insight, and those that have studied it, insight into the rationale in terms of how they got to where they were. So I would have to push back strongly. Oh, you didn't have to remove it. That was fine. Why? No. Can we undo that? Can you undo that? I don't know, because that wasn't my. I didn't. No, we didn't need to do that. But and so anyway, okay. So I made that point. All right, cool. So look, this stuff is ratcheting up, and the longer this goes on, and the more that this unfolds, I'll close with this. The more power, the more pride I have in Admiral Halsey, the brother that retired. He resigned his position as the commander of Southcom, and then retired from the Navy. I have much more, not that I didn't have respect for the man in the first place, but I have even more respect for the man now. And because now we're finding out that he didn't retire, that Hegseth, the guy whose mother, in fact, every time I think they do a story on him, they need to put this quote from his mother in the story. I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. You are that man, have been for years, and as your mama, it pains me and embarrasses me to say that, but it's the sad, sad truth. Oh, you know what? Before I get to Halsey, this just dawned on me. Because in reading this again, this just dawned on me. This final statement, it's the sad, sad truth. Once you say that, you can't take that back. And Ramplesense, you said you can't see the comment from Cam 35 millimeter, and that's because it was removed. And if we removed it from our end, I apologize. Because that was a mistake. That we should not have done that. I don't know if Cam removed it himself or whether we removed it on this end. If we removed it on this end, I apologize. We did not intend to do that. That was a mistake on our side. Unless there was a subsequent comment that I did not see. That may be the answer. That there was a subsequent comment that I did not see that deserved to be removed. Short of that, it was our mistake. So with that being said, what was I saying? Oh, that the last statement that his mama made was, it's the sad, sad truth. In the articles I've read where she now has tried to retract that statement, I don't think she's ever said she was wrong. I think what she has said is she should not have said it. Those are two different things. I think she has said that she sent an immediate follow-up at the time apologizing for what she had written. She fired off the original email in anger with emotion at a time when he and his wife were going through a very difficult period. In the subsequent interview, she defended her son and disavowed the statements she had expressed. Oh, she then goes on to say, it's not true. It has never been true. Now, come on, homegirl. Really? You're going to write something that demeaning about your son and finish the statement by saying it's the sad, sad truth, and he's been this way for years, which demonstrates what they call legally a pattern of behavior? No, you didn't. What happened was he called you and said, Mom, you're killing me here. And she said, oh, I'm sorry, baby. I didn't mean to put you on blast like that. I didn't realize that this was going to have that kind of impact. Okay, enough of that. You get my point. Oh, back to Admiral Halsey really quickly. So when Hegseth first started talking about this campaign to blow up boats, Admiral Halsey pushed back and said, no, not a good idea. Illegal. Shouldn't do it. Go ahead and put it up. This brother right here, Morehouse man, by the way, Morehouse man, did what they taught him to do at Morehouse. Stand up, speak up, show up. Brother went to the house. And Hegseth pushed him out for doing what's right. There was another guy that went to Morehouse. What was his name? Reverend Dr. What do they call him? Martin Luther King Jr. Yeah. He went to Morehouse. He's a Morehouse man. So Hegseth pushed out the guy that stood up and said, bad idea, Petey. Bad idea. To his credit, the moral arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. So with that, I want to thank my, oh, wait a minute. See, this is why you have beautiful, wonderful people working with you. Oh, okay. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Yes. I see how I pronounce these names. Tim Bulls 1290. Thank you for that super sticker. One thing I get nervous of is my mom telling my biz. If it's that kind of biz, I would think so. If it's that kind of biz, Tim, I would think so. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for that super sticker. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. Timbo Slice. Oh, that's what that. Thank you. Got it now. Timbo Slice. Gotcha, Timbo. Timbo, I like that. Timbo Slice, $12.90. Got it. So with that, thank you all so much for joining me today. Thank you all so much for hanging with me on this one today. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. Folks, had a good turnout today and really appreciate it. I can't, and thank you all for the likes. We desperately need financial support here. And we need your likes. We need your subscribers. And this is not just the typical plea for support. I'm letting you know very clearly that we're reaching the end of the process. And if you can support us, please do. If you can't, well, I understand. I ain't mad at you. But it's going to result in some changes needing to be made. So you can follow us. All the links are below there in the bottom. If you can support me, support us, support this, and get a couple of your friends to do so. Bobby joined. Thank you for that super sticker. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. I know it's the holiday season, and Timbo Slice, lime jumbo slice. Bobby joined. Thank you. Greatly appreciate it. Ramplesense. Thank you, Dr. Leon. Well, Ramplesense, it's my honor, my pleasure. I see this as my duty, my commitment, and my job, my responsibility. Did Cam, the 35 millimeter come back? I can't tell. But anyway, thank you, Ramplesense, for hey, because look, folks, the last time I was perfect was never. And so I think we made a mistake on that one. And over we go. Andrew James, new member. Thank you. See, thank you, folks. I'm serious about this. We need this. We can't continue. It's very simple. We can't continue without it. It's just that simple. So Andrew James, thank you. Greatly appreciate your joining. And Andrew, if you could reach out to 5 of your closest friends, because Andrew, I know you, and I know you got like 673 real close friends, because you roll like that. You just roll. I know you roll like that. But no, help a brother out if you could, please. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Tomorrow, we're working on tomorrow. We're working on tomorrow. So stay with us on that one. And remember that this is where the analysis of history, politics, and culture converge, and that talk without analysis is just chatter. And we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. Oh, and one more point before I get out. Somebody yesterday made this point in the chat about Russian talking points. And folks, I'm just going to quickly, 2 seconds, hit on this whole Ukraine conflict issue. No matter how you feel about the ongoing war in Ukraine, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, made the point, and this is not my opinion. You can look this one up and read it for yourself. He said, I want to say it might have been in February. I could be off on that, but I'm not off on this. President Trump sees this conflict as a proxy war. The United States and Ukraine against Russia. Those aren't Russian talking points, unless Marco Rubio is now touting Vladimir Putin, touting the comments and reciting the positions of Vladimir Putin. The things that I'm saying to you about the conflict in Russia, 90% of that's not my opinion. It's fact. Angela Merkel, the former chancellor of Germany, did give an interview and was very clear in saying during the negotiations with Russia, during the Minsk process, and there were 2 rounds of that, she said, we lied. We never intended Minsk to be implemented in the first place. We engaged in those negotiations so that we could bide time to rearm and train Ukraine so that we would later be able to invade Russia. She said that. And I think it was the then Francois Hollande, what's the dude's name? The former president of France, Francois Hollande, validated it, came on and said she was correct. And the former president of Ukraine said the very same thing. So if you understand that Marco Rubio, and look, I can go through a whole lot of other stuff, but just these 2 points, alone. If you understand that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, the chief diplomat of this country, said, and you can go back and look it up because it's not hard to find, President Trump sees this conflict as a proxy war. Look up what it means to be a proxy war. It means the United States is using Ukraine as its vassal to attack Russia. And then if you look up, Chancellor Merkel admits it was a lie, that Minsk was a lie. And then, remember, go back and look it up. When Putin and Biden met in Geneva, Putin said to Biden, we've already negotiated this. All you have to do, Joe, is implement Minsk. Putin said that more than once. Look it up. Don't accuse me of reciting, championing, parroting Russian talking points. Look it up yourself, damn it. Putin said to Biden, all you got to do, Joe, to settle this thing is implement Minsk. And Biden refused to do it. Why? Because Merkel tells us they knew it was a sham from the beginning. So when you take those 3 points and you bring it to today and you ask yourself, why is Putin not agreeing to a peace settlement? The answer is very simple. And this is not a Russian talking point. This is only logic. His response is, I've been through this with you twice, Minsk 1 and Minsk 2. Been through it with you twice. I'm not going to fall for it again. Folks, that's not to fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We ain't going to do it a third time. That's not. So when you listen to Rachel Maddow and you listen to all of these other folks and they want to, or you read it in the Washington Post and you read it in the New York Times, and Putin is being obstinate. Putin doesn't want peace. It's not true. He's not going to fall for the trap again. That's why he's saying, you will surrender. There will be no ceasefire. You will surrender. Why? Because Russia has won. It's really over. It's really over. It's Ali Frazier. It's the third fight. They're just waiting for Eddie Futch to tell Joe, stay on the stool, son. Stay on the stool. You're not coming out for round 15. Stay on the stool. Where's Eddie Futch when you need him? I guess at the end of the day, that's the moral of this story. Where's Eddie Futch when you need him? Because somebody on the side of the West, and to hell with all this European, the leaders of the EU, and they're going to send money. And now that's a whole nother conversation that, we can have very soon. But look, don't trust what I'm saying. Look it up for yourself and then ask yourself, where's Eddie Futch when you need him? And look up Eddie Futch. There was a comment here I wanted to look at real quick. Where'd it go? And Ukraine just hit fuel tanker off the coast of Senegal and was headed to Mali. I can't stand Ukraine. Well, okay. I champion your persistence, Doc. Convince a fool against their will leaves them a fool still. Your grandma. Well, tell Grandma Carrie if she's still with us, she's right. And if she's not, then I'll say a prayer to Grandma Carrie tonight. Thank you, old Griffin. Appreciate that. So again, there's a lot of other stuff that we could get into on this, but I can go all the way back to 1990 and that whole thing, but I'm not, and look that one up. But anyway, if you just look up, those of you that are tripping, thinking that I'm just citing talking points. No, I deal with history. I'm a political scientist. I am not a political operative. I don't know Vladimir Putin from Buddha House Cat. This is not a matter of me backing Russia against the United States or backing the United States. No, I just deal with the truth and I deal with the facts. And I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine this morning, dear friend of mine this morning, and I said, the difference between ignorance and stupidity. The difference between ignorance and stupidity. Ignorance is the lack of knowledge on a particular issue. It's the lack of knowing about a particular issue. That's ignorance. And we're all ignorant about many things. In fact, we're really more ignorant about things than we are smart. Stupidity is finding out the reality and choosing to ignore it. That's stupidity. So I'm offering a lot of you the opportunity to move into the realm of knowledge. Look these things up. Did Angela Merkel admit that Minsk was a lie? Look that up. Did Vladimir Putin tell Joe Biden, we've already settled this? Implement Minsk and we're done. Look it up. And did Lil Marco admit that this is a proxy war? Look it up. With that, thank you all again. Sorry I rambled on as long as you did, but a lot of y'all hung with me. So I greatly appreciate that. So with that, this is the time of the day that I must say thank you. Have a blessed remainder of your day. And peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.